Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. I thought today it might be nice to do something a little bit more delicate and floral. I've been doing kind of big chunky pieces lately, so let's try to do something dainty. The inspiration for this one is one I saw in a retail store somewhere. I don't remember where, honestly, but it has a teardrop shaped stone on the top, and then it wraps around the finger, so it's kind of a wraparound flower ring. It's got a few leaves along the stem, which is the thing that wraps around your finger. And that's about all there is to it. So it's kind of a simple project. So I don't think it's going to be too difficult, except for maybe the prong setting I'm going to build from scratch. So most of this, if you used a bezel set cabochon, it would look just fine as well, I would think. And so if you're a beginner and that might be the route you want to go, I think you should try it. If you want to do something a little more advanced, make a setting for a faceted stone. So I picked out a pretty little teardrop shaped garnet for it. On the smallish side, and that'll be our main stone. So before we do that, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. The first group of people I wanted to thank are my patrons over on Patreon, and I have a brand new one, Jeremy B. Thank you for signing up. I really appreciate your support. I know that you'll find that there's a really nice group of people over there who like to chat about jewelry, so make sure to tap into that knowledge base. And thanks for signing up. And thank you to all of my patrons for your support. My YouTube subscribers are the other group. I think we just passed 24,800, which is amazing. Thank you for that. I'm truly amazed when I see that number. I never thought that I'd have that many followers on YouTube, so thank you for that. And thank you also for the nice comments, as well as the merch purchases and the buy me a coffees and the super thanks and the ebook purchases, and all that stuff really helps to keep my channel going, and I really couldn't do it without your support, so thank you for that. All right, well, let's get started on this little floral ring. So I dug out a few of my unused little sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. They have this nice dot matrix in the background, and I keep track of my projects, so I find them really useful. And most of them have some different kinds of silversmithing information, like this one has melting temperatures of things. As well as percentages of silver and different kinds of solder, things like that. The one I'm using right now is this one here. I've almost filled this one up, but what I really like is the dot matrix in the background, because it helps me to draw things a little bit more symmetrically. So I find them pretty useful, and it's nice to be able to go back and see some projects you did in the past. So I've done so many things nowadays that it's hard to remember everything I've done, and so I can at least go back and reintroduce those ideas into my brain so I can use those as inspiration for other stuff. So get yourself one or two of those. I think they're really handy. So I'm going to use 8-gauge half-round wire for the band here. It's going to get a little bit thicker in the middle here and then taper down to the ends a little bit. So I'm going to file each end into kind of a gradual taper to make it look more like stem-like, I guess. And the leaves I'm going to cut out of 18-gauge sheet. And I'll probably use something like a screwdriver or something to stamp a little line down the middle of them to give them a nice look. So picked up a few pretty little garnets at the last gem shows in September down here in Denver, and so I just thought these were particularly pretty color red, so we'll see what we can do with that. Let's file the stem, and I've already cut a piece, and what I did to measure for the size that I wanted was I kept track of kind of how far these from here to about right here would be when I wrapped this around, and I was shooting for about an 8. So an 8 would be right where they crossed each other. So this is going to be overlapping each other, and we can achieve an 8 that way, if that makes any sense. So I measured around the ring mandrel right there, past itself like that, and that's about how long it came out to be. So we'll give that a shot and see if we get pretty close to it. That's what I cut off of some 8-gauge or 3.25 millimeters, I think. I'm going to, like, from the center, gradually kind of taper it down on either side with the file. Just like that. So I may clamp it in my miter vise jig just to hold it more easily. This is probably against the rules, since I'm just clamping it in I just want something to make it easier to hold on to when I'm filing. And sometimes you can use a tool in a way it's not really intended for. Maybe it is, I don't know. Either way, though, it will allow me access to the side like this. And hold it a little more steady than my fingers could. So I think at some point or another, the video I did on Thursday, I did kind of a bird. And the general consensus, I think, amongst people who saw it, was that the wings didn't match the rest of the style of the bird. And I tend to agree. They didn't look exactly how I had envisioned them in my mind. I thought they kind of meld right into the whole design. So I suspect at some point or another, I'm going to go ahead and pop the stone out of his eye and take those wings off and redo the wings more in the style of the tail that I did for him, as was suggested by a couple of commenters, which I appreciate. And I think that would be much prettier. So I still think it was kind of a fun project, but not everything always works out the way you expect it to. And sometimes you can go back and change things up a little bit to make it more how you wanted it to be. So, but I have to agree with the commenters because I really liked the tail, and the wings to me were just kind of like meh. Oops. Somebody else suggested, I always talk about the different kinds of solder that I use and the flux and the torch that I use and stuff. I'm just going to start putting that in a graphic, and I'll just put it in each video so you can see that without me having to repeat that every time. That'll save a little watch time on the video probably. That's probably pretty good. Get it pretty flat. We need to make some leaves. And I found a little piece of 18 gauge. What did I do with you? There you are. Okay, so you can see these are pretty small leaves. So I think I'm going to scribe one out just by hand. Let's see. Find it. It's about the right size, I think. Let's cut that out. It looks like we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 leaves. So with this, I usually grab these either in the miter vise jig or just a pair of pliers. If you can hold it pretty tight and smooth out. Kind of the size range I was looking for. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of tape on here so it doesn't skate around too much, and then I'll use it to trace some more of these. We'll do one extra just to be safe. That way, if one of them looks a little wonky or something, I'll have a backup. I've been known to cut a wonky leaf or two. So I'm going to use my saw for these ones, I think. Just because it'd be too hard probably to use the shears and get them very nice. And I'll have less filing if I do it that way. Honestly though, it doesn't matter if they're a little bit different from each other because they're supposed to be leaves, right? So let's go over to the sawing area. I'm using a 00. There's one. You probably don't have to watch me cut out anymore. You get the idea. Okay, I got all these leaves. I filed them a little bit, and I lost one on the floor. So I did a prototype for stamping a little line down the middle of it. And it is right there. And what I did is I took a screwdriver that I cleaned up the end on an old one, and just use that to make stem marks sometimes. could also solder on a little skinny wire to make a stem if you wanted to, I suppose. Done that kind of thing before. Okay, so I need to figure out how we're going to lay them out on here. So one side's going to just have the two. Let's dump them all on here. There's a slight variation in some of the sizes. Certainly not because of my amazing sawing skills. Oh, golly. Let's see. What if we put a leaf there? Kind of like that. Do those two, that'll be these two right here. And then these other ones, we need a little one at the end. Maybe this one. So I may have to file the end a little flatter on this one. And then we'll just line up the other ones kind of like this and solder them on. Let's do that. Let's solder those ones on first, and then we'll just work our way down. If you're new to this, even though we're just soldering up here, we got to get this entire piece up to the temperature that the solder flows at if we want to get a good solder job. So you want them both to reach 1450-ish degrees, and the little pieces reach it much quicker than the big piece. I may have to use the Dremel to cut those little grooves a little bit deeper maybe, but we'll see. Alright, let's keep working our way down. Should we put one on the end? Let's file the end of that flat for the end one. See, I got the leaf hot before I got the stem all the way up to temperature, and so all of the solder ran onto the leaf. That was my bad. Definitely going to have to stamp that one again. What I'm doing is called pick soldering, and it makes it easy to place a little bit of solder where you want it to go pretty effectively. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, I have a pretty good video about it. It's one of those skills that kind of pushed me past what I could do originally, and it's probably one of the key skills I ever learned as far as making jewelry. So most of the time when I'm doing something like this that is based off of someone else's work I've seen, it's kind of my attempt to reverse engineer and figure out how people do things. And so I make no claim to this basic design. It's not really my design. I'm just trying to figure out how they did it, you know, so it's kind of an exploration process for me. So, okay, I think I'm going to let that pickle for a little while and we can work on the setting for this little garnet. So like I said, I have this piece of flattened 14 gauge. It was about 0.95 millimeters thick now. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little platform that is exactly the size of the stone. So if I was to set the stone on top of this, you would not be able to see this, but it should be just right up to the very edge. That's my hope. First, we're going to probably file this end here at an angle. Kind of a steep angle. Cut that right about where they meet at the tip there. And I'm going to try and file this other side to more of a point as well. That's pretty good, actually. So I think I might solder that like that. The stone has a pretty deep girdle. So I think I'm going to take a ball burr and taper it down so that the stone sits down much deeper in there. I think that should work okay. In order to make this a little easier to hold and work with, since my hands are kind of big and fumbly compared to this, I'm going to use a little ball burr and I clamped it in the miter-dice jig. We're just going to kind of like carve the slope going down inwards. I'm going to switch to a little bit bigger burr. let's see how close we are now. See, that's sitting down a lot lower. So you can see that. That'll be just peachy. So now I need to make something that covers the tip of this. It goes up and over. And so I have to figure out a way to do that, and then just put 2 prongs on the back side here, which should be pretty easy. So I'll show you how to do that, but let me figure out how to do the front side here. So. Okay, I made one of these a long time ago where it had a cup on the tip of the setting instead of a prong. And so what I did was I took a piece of 26 gauge sheet and I bent it into half, and I trimmed out like a 45-degree angle down there. And what we'll need to do is make sure it's pretty close to the right angle for the tip of that, which it looks like it is actually. And then I think let's bend these down towards each other. So I'm just going to put a little solder on the top of that, make it a single piece. I don't need a very big piece, so let me find, there's a little bit right there. Oops, where'd you go? I lost my solder. Oh no! There's a piece. So I want this to just cover the tip of that like that. So I need to solder it on about like that. So let's see if we can do that. Got a new magnesia block. Sometimes I use this Cool Tools fire brick, but the one I have is getting sort of messed up. So I just got one of these. But these are much like those in that you can push things down into them. That looks pretty good. Should we pick solder a little bit in there? See if we can get it on. Now let's find a couple of pieces of 18 gauge round wire. The hard part about using pads where you're sticking part of your piece down in them is it insulates it from the heat. Makes it harder to get the entire piece up to the temperature you want it to be. Sometimes it takes a little more creative heating. Okay, let's see if we succeeded or not. Alright, well, let's fish out that other piece. And let's see if we can hook these two together. Alright, so I think the best way to attach this is if we put a V notch on the top of this wire, so we can kind of nestle that right in there, and then we'll just attach it. So let's do that. Should we use a little paste solder on this one, a little medium or something? Getting lazy in my old age using this paste. This is kind of a basic ring, but if you spend a little time, you could really make it more organic-y with some texturing and stuff like this. This one right now is just going to kind of be a simple bypass. Well, I'll get that adjusted a little bit and pickled, and then we'll get it set in there. So we're down to it, I think. I cleaned this up, and then I had a little bit of trouble. I polished away some of this little cap here, so I had to hollow it out a bit more to get more of the point to the stone in there. But that worked out okay, and because it was tricky to get it in there, I pushed this over a little bit in order to get it stuck in place. I will these facets that are midway between the girdle and the table facet, oftentimes are called girdle facets. And I'm going to go ahead and lay this down as tight as I can, those two prongs. And then I'm going to cut them off about midway up the table facets there. Not the table facets, the getting tired, I think. The girdle facets. And then I will take my Dremel and I'll shape those into kind of a sharp point and thin them out towards the top of the prong. But I think that came out really pretty. I like it. So, kind of what we were shooting for. I think I got a little more stem between the leaves here than I had drawn up there, but I like it. I think that's a pretty one. So let me know what you think. I always appreciate constructive criticism. I'd give myself probably a B+ on this one. I think it's done pretty well, and it's cool. So give it a try if you want. Alright, well that was the garnet pear-shaped floral ring. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And I would love it if you'd take a moment and go over to my main channel page. There's tons of content over there. I've been doing this for almost 4 years now, at 3 per week. And so last I checked, there was over 550 videos there. So peruse some of those. There's some good project ideas, I think, as well as a few skill videos that are useful. So whether you're a beginner or someone more advanced, I think there's something for you over there. So check it out, and I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. There is no cost to that, and I do appreciate it. The other thing is, check out the video description down below. There's some information about this video, but there's also some important links. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to get to know more about that community there. There's multiple tiers of membership with different perks. The lowest being just getting rid of the YouTube ads, which is kind of nice in itself. The other ones include some live streams that we do and chat about jewelry. Also some exclusive videos just for Patreon. So I do one of those almost every week. And it's a nice place. A lot of cool people over there with a lot of knowledge. So check it out if you're interested. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks that I showed you at the beginning. They're really handy and a great way to keep track of your ideas as well as your projects from the past. Get yourself a couple of those. They're really useful. The other link that's there is a link to my latest ebook, which is the Guide to 2024's YouTube Tutorials. And it's got about 170 some pages. Each page is devoted to one of the tutorials. And each page has a link right to the video. And it also has the original sketch that I drew, a picture of the final outcome, a list of materials you need to make it, difficulty rating, kind of subjective on my part, and then some notes I made about the project, talking about things like, did I learn something from it? Would I do it differently based on how it turned out this last time? Did I like the outcome? Did I not like the outcome, and why? So I think it's a useful way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and it's really a nice way to support my channel. There's even a package deal if you get both 2023s and 2024s together, so you save a little money that way. Alright, well thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.